would you, if you had to put a percentage mark on how many players in the league live paycheck by paycheck, what would you say that is, CJ? Because I mean, a lot of people in the world live paycheck by paycheck now, so it's not an uncommon practice.
Right. I would say there's some guys in the league that are hurting right now because there could be obviously work stoppages in place. There could be a pay stoppage. We're on pace to lose about 23.5% of income off this season, and then we probably lost $1 billion, maybe even more, depending on if we're able to restart the season, which will affect the collective bargaining agreement and the BRI next season. So I think a lot of guys are going to be hurting, especially people on minimums or people that didn't just budget correctly. We expect this to happen. Maybe they loan money or give money to family, but they're taking care of multiple people, and now it's a work stoppage for us and for a lot of people in America. So I would say out of 450 players, 150 probably live paycheck to paycheck.
That right there was a clip of one of the vice presidents of the NBA Players Union, McCollum, talking about how in a league where the average annual salary is $7.7 million, 1/3 of the NBA's 450 players are living paycheck to paycheck. Now, how is this possible? For most of us, just one season of NBA pay would set us and our families up for generational wealth. Yet the NBA stops play for 1 month and some of them are already scrambling on how to pay for expenses. I've compiled a list of factors that I think are the top reasons why players have financial demises, and they are ranked from least to most important. Starting off with number 1 is taxes. Athletes have a tough job. They are always under intense scrutiny and lack much privacy. There is always a camera in their face. Also, players' salaries are widely known to the public. It's publicly disclosed information. We know exactly how much money LeBron James is making for playing on the Lakers, but we don't know how much money he actually makes off the court in endorsements. But even the lowest earning NBA player makes enough to qualify for the highest income tax bracket, which means almost 40% of their income right off the bat goes to Uncle Sam. Plus, those playing for a high income tax state like New York or California, they lose another significant chunk of their income. This is why playing for a team based in Florida or Texas or any of the other zero income tax states can actually have huge ramifications for how much money you can actually get to keep. Number 2 is no financial education. It's no surprise to anyone that most athletes do not come from very privileged backgrounds. Unless you're Stephen Curry, whose dad was an NBA player, or Kevin Love, whose dad was also an NBA player, and uncle was actually one of the Beach Boys, chances are you never had anyone there to teach you about wealth building. These players go from living in poverty one day to becoming overnight millionaires at just 19, the moment that they sign their name on that dotted line. And the NBA is actually in talks to lower that age back to 18, which means you could see high school players entering the league yet again. Although they may physically look like they're ready to handle millions of dollars, most 18-year-olds are not mentally ready and should not be trusted with that kind of money. And this is by no means knocking athletes as dumb. I would say they are very highly skilled in a particular profession that gives them the opportunity to make millions, just like they would laugh at me if they saw how I shot a basketball. But financial education is something that I think everyone can definitely learn. Leagues and individuals should take more responsibility to learn and teach this to every player before ever signing that first contract. Number 3 on why athletes are so broke is because they didn't hit that like button. Oh wait, that was you, and you can easily change that. The real number 3 is that players are easy to hoodwink into bad investments. Players give a significant amount of their income to their agents and so-called financial advisors, aka the lot of people who wear fancy suits who are taking huge commissions and don't always invest in players' money wisely. Take, for example, just this past year, it came out that Lonzo Ball, whose family is the Kardashians of the basketball world, his manager, Alan Foster, allegedly had been stealing money from him and Lonzo had no clue. Now, I will say I do from time to time watch Alan Foster's YouTube channel, where he actually says it was the Balls who had stolen money from him. I don't know who's telling the truth here. We'll see what the courts have to say about it. Though in one of his videos, he mentioned a very interesting point that I had never heard about before. He said that athletes don't need financial advisors right away. He said that if players are paranoid, they can just take their money and put it straight into a bank account and leave it there. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized he's right. There's no boogeyman that's just going to come in and steal your money from the bank, other than the Federal Reserve and inflation. But think about it. Would you rather have $8 million just sitting in your bank, slowly losing value to inflation? Or would you rather just give it to a shady financial advisor and other bad investments? And it seems that sports figures are just so prone to bad investments. Here are just a few of my favorites. So baseball player Curt Schilling spent over $50 million into a video game studio that he launched, and they put out a whole one game before going into bankruptcy. Bulls legend Scottie Pippen spent $4.5 million on a private jet, except he decided to skip the scheduled inspection, which would have shown him that the jet could not fly, and it actually needed over $1 million in maintenance work to repair, and he could not afford it at the time. Yes, we have guys buying planes that can't fly. I cannot make this stuff up. Number 4 would be spending on liabilities rather than assets. Now this is the classic rich dad, poor dad. You knew this one was coming. A lot of this one is just on people maybe expecting you to live a certain lifestyle if you are a ball player. People expect a certain type of swagger from you. People are expecting you to roll up in the latest Ferrari. And then we look at people weird, like the NBA player Kawhi Leonard, who's a real fun guy, by the way.
I mean, it's just more questions you have to ask me in order for me to tell you about myself. I just can't give you a whole spiel. I don't even know where you're sitting at.
He still drives a 1997 Chevy Tahoe, and he uses coupons at Wingstop despite being sponsored by Wingstop. But most players spend large amounts of money on custom-made expensive jewelry, exotic cars, multiple mansions, high-end dining, child service payments, gambling, designer clothes, bottle service, pet tigers. All right, maybe that last one is a select few, but you get the idea. While players should be able to enjoy the money that they work so hard for as they see fit, spending it on too many liabilities will leave them broke once their playing career is over, as liabilities keep taking money out of your pocket. Moving on to number 5, and that is the narrow window of opportunity to make money. And this is one I think that gets really overlooked. While for every LeBron James who's lucky to play what seems like an infinite number of seasons, most careers only last a few seasons. That means players can only demand these high-paying salaries for a few years of their life, and they have to make that stretch for the rest of their life after their playing career is over. This is really once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that they must capitalize on. Now, let's be honest, those useless classes that they probably took in college aren't going to help them get high-paying jobs after their career is over. This is why I will never fault a player for choosing to get paid rather than do what's best for the team or win a championship. You never know when your career might be over with an injury or just being replaced. Hassle and bargain for every dollar on your contract. Also, while players may be able to afford their lifestyles when they are high income earners, they are going to be humbled real quick once they walk away from the game. Suddenly the money starts to dry up, but those recurring monthly expenses are going to keep coming in. And lastly, the most important reason why I think athletes go broke is because of leeches. And by leeches, I mean pretend family and friends who feel like you owe them something. Whether this is a parent who expects you to buy them whatever, whenever, or a distant step cousin you never knew you even had until you became famous, people will become entitled and think that you owe them some favors. And it's pretty hard to say no to these people, especially if you came from nothing and now have a little dough. You ever notice that these players always seem to be hanging out in huge crowds when they go out? That's not all just for security reasons. Those are leeches looking for a free meal ticket. NFL wide receiver Tavon Austin said as soon as he got drafted, his phone began ringing nonstop with people asking when they can expect money, and wanting to be around him. Former NFL player Philip Buchanan says that his mom demanded $1 million upfront the day he got his first NFL contract for being his mom. Some of his so-called friends even set him up to be robbed at gunpoint. A bad entourage can even end a life. Charles Rogers, who used to play for the Lions, passed away in 2019 at the young age of 38. While Rogers didn't hesitate to help friends who asked him for money when he was a millionaire, none of these friends were there for him when he became broke. But not every story has to end like this. Let's actually go back to the very same interview that played at the start of the video. Hear what CJ has to say about investments.
Notre Dame's campus, about 450 feet off campus. Closed on a property with Anthony Tolliver, who's in the league, so we're working on that. That's a senior housing project that we're doing in Missouri. Working on some projects, really focusing on college campuses right now. Going to do a few single parent households or single family households. My mom actually owns 5 properties in Ohio. My brother's got some properties in Arizona right off campus. So just kind of using our networks, and real estate is something that I've always loved and admired from afar. So now I'm just really trying to learn about it and use my resources. I had a group conference called in my financial advice.
Now, I don't know if you caught that, but McCollum talks about how his family is investing in real estate and other assets and how he's leveraging his network to their advantage. Now, I don't know the specifics, but I assume McCollum is teaching them how to fish rather than just giving them the fish. This is what really building that generational wealth is all about. Rather than just giving money, show others how they can create that wealth as well. Now, I could make a whole separate video on great investments by players or bad investments. Let me know below if that's something you would like to see. And it took me a long time to complete this video, so be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you guys agree or disagree with me on anything, be sure to let me know in the comments by cussing me out.